Man, listen, I've told kids off from the bus, for talking back at their mom. Like I go on Nigerian uncle on them, and I'm like, yo, this is your mother. Like, have you lost your mind?
I've met parents that I see their kids are well behaved. And for me as a person, I would always approach anybody. I think I like what you do and I want to learn something from you. I'll always ask questions.
The Child Right Act, your responsibility as a parent is to not to deprive your child of information, because the information you don't give to your child at home, the child receives information outside.
Look at the Asian parents from Asia, like India, Pakistan, and the rest. You see, their parents, mostly their mothers stay at home to take care of the children.
Because, I don't permit my children going beyond where I cannot handle. But they go to a school. Their school is so close to the house. And then the children, literally everybody in the neighborhood goes to that school, except for the ones that are older. And I didn't want to look like, mommy does not like them going out. Those things. Because those children can actually go to their parents and say that this person's mom is always keeping them in the house.
We actually wanted to discuss something very vital today. It's a big worry to a lot of people living in the UK. The impact of the UK environment and culture on the children from immigrant parents or household. Let me just give us a premise to what we'll be discussing today. We want to look at living in an environment that is caught between two cultures. That's the African culture and what we get to see here, the environment in the UK. The adaptability impact on children. How are children coping in this new environment? So the mindset of children, their mental health and emotions on obvious factors like race and how they are perceived by others. The weather, food, and lack of mutual social pairs and playmates. Physical and mental strength to withstand heavier challenges outside the UK than what they are faced right now in the UK. Disciplining children in line with obvious and contemporary growth for good of the child as he or she grows up. Adopting and learning traits that may be okay with the environment but detrimental in the long run to a child. So basically, what we'll be looking through today will be just to get to seek to know the overall confidence, health and well-being of a child once settled in the UK. This is a very big subject. When I look at my child, I really, there are a lot of things that actually go on in my head. Like when I was growing up, I was faced with, just a lot of things that have to do with pairs, playmates and all that. Kids in the UK go to school and they come back and that's it. Maybe during weekends, they probably go to church once in a while. It's a major problem. It's a major problem. There are a lot of traits that children pick from this environment. We just want to understand from the discussion today, how are we coping? What do you think would be impacting these children in an environment that is culturally divided, being children from immigrant parents from Africa growing up within this environment? Mr. Vincent?
All right, thank you very much. My name is Vincent Oga. Yeah, actually, children in the UK have a different life based on, with respect to how we were brought up. For example, those of us that were brought up from Nigeria, where you get up in the morning, go to school, come back, play around with friends, play football on the street, interact with friends. But we notice that children born here are limited based on interaction with friends and people around. Going to school, yes, they have friends in school, they play with them. But when they come back to the house, they're glued to their phones or tablets or TV, as the case may be. So they spend a lot of time with their electronic gadgets instead of spending a lot of time with friends and families and people around. So somehow, in that aspect, they are limited in that particular aspect.
I want to hear someone say what I'm thinking in my head. So I'm hoping someone will say that first because I'm having similar issues. So I'm just hoping I'll hear from someone first.
Yeah, because I think it's a big worry because the learning process, sometimes I even feel parents do not really have that time to engage with these kids when they get back from school. Some parents are actually busy. Some parents are at work. And when they're at home, that's the time they just want to rest. So some of these gadgets that Dr. Vincent was actually talking about now keeps them busy while the parents want to rest and all that. So there is this big divide compared to when we're back home in Nigeria or in Africa, where you have not both parents at the same time being just working at the same time, as it were. We have maybe the dad or the mom will just still be around to, take care of these kids. Here is a different ballgame completely. You get to see the kids being alone, learning stuff themselves, which sometimes may not really be too healthy. And that's why we're just trying to understand, how can we help these kids? How do we understand the impacts the environment hits on these children?
About children not being able to play the way we were able to, in that aspect, I think one of the reasons is because the places where we currently reside here, the residential areas, are usually like not the prime areas like where we came from. And then the kind of people that sometimes live around those areas might not be like the best kind of people we wish the children to relate with, judging by the kind of background of people here. That is one. Two, when it comes to like the community assets, like the fields, the basketball courts and all of that, we find it hard to let our children go outside and play alone when we are unable to go out with them, because, we don't want them going there without us being able to monitor them. So probably because maybe we're busy or we are too tired to go out with them. So it's kind of like, when the children want to go out, we say no, like, I can't let you go there without me going with you, just for their own security. You understand? One of the challenges we have is like, it's more like the culture shock, the way the society runs here is different from the way the society we came from is being run. And we find it, and the mentality of the people around us as well is quite different from our mentality. I'm so sure if it was a situation whereby we have a place where it's mostly like inhabited by our people, like you understand, it might probably be easier for us to allow our children go outside to play, because we know that it's still like one community and we know each other and all that. But in a situation whereby it's a mixed environment and there are different kind of people, some people are there with hateful hearts towards your child, and you can't tell until something happens behind your back, which you cannot wait for. So it's better to always just do whatever you can to protect them from that. Now, talking about the screen time, talking about the children, being able to, living on, the screen.
The gadgets, the computers.
Yeah, the gadget aspect. I just feel like there are other things we can engage them with other than just giving them those gadgets without monitoring those gadgets. Like you can give them gadgets and they'll just go ahead and start playing games by themselves or watching stuff. Rather, give them a task or a specific activity you want them to go for on that gadget. Of course, sometimes when you don't monitor them, they can change the channels and all of that. But tech has gotten to a level whereby whatever your child is watching on their gadget, you can actually monitor from wherever you are. It's usually like only alternative if we don't want to let them go out and probably something odd happens. I'm going to mention an example. There was a day my daughter, her friends came over and said that they just wanted to go and play at the lawn. I'm actually going to be watching the lawn from my kitchen. So the lawn is just on the other side of my house. I didn't like the idea, but because I just didn't want to feel like, I didn't want those, because those girls always come around. I'm always saying, no. That specific day, I just said, okay, let me just.
If it were in Africa, would you feel more comfortable?
Oh, sure. My children go, but my children don't go beyond certain places. Actually, my children don't go beyond certain places. They're usually in the compound anyways. They play with the neighbors. They don't go like far away, like somewhere like I will not see. No, it does not happen even in Nigeria. So they were just like on the other side of my house. I was watching them. I was in the kitchen. I was watching everything happening, and just less than 10 minutes that they left the house, my little one, because I've got 3 children, the youngest just fell. And I'm like, that was literally why I did not want them going out unsupervised, do you understand, without me being there. Not like someone attacked her, not like someone, you understand, not like someone did anything, but they were careless. And I saw it and I'm like, Why would you let this thing happen? And you're there. You begged to get yourself out. So things like this are things that we don't want to happen. Now imagine if I was not watching, and then the next thing, someone might call the police. The next thing, social works will come in, and then the next thing is done to. You understand? That day, I got there in a flash. I didn't know how I jumped out of my house, and I'm like, what? Disappear. Now inside the house, the friends are looking at me. They couldn't say a word because I don't permit my children going beyond where I cannot handle. But they go to a school. Their school is so close to the house. And then the children, literally everybody in the neighborhood goes to that school, except for the ones that are older. And I didn't want to look like mommy does not like them going out, those things, because those children can actually go to their parents and say that this person's mom is always keeping them in the house. They don't know. And then some parents, how nosy people can be here. The next thing, they will call some people and they don't used to allow their children to go out. And okay, we experimented it and it ended up in shambles. So sometimes the reason why we don't let these children step out are things like this. And then there are hateful people around, for all we know. There are nosy people around. When people don't know what is happening in your house, they won't put you in trouble. The lesser they know, the better it is. We need to learn to create other activities to make up for those things they are unable to enjoy because we're trying to, protect them. That's all for now.
If you ask me, I will tell you categorically that I'm not too impressed by the lifestyle of children growing up in the UK. I get to see a lot of, attitudinal differences that we as parents would not like. If you have a child here growing up in the UK, sometimes you get to see kids being very verbally abusive, kids being very not too confident, kids looking sometimes as if they are withdrawn. It's a mixture of a lot. You as a parent, how worried are you that you probably have a child that is not growing up the way you would want this child to grow up, attitudinally, mentally, and socially? How do you feel with the kids you have around you growing up?
Yeah, thanks for having me again, man. Right, you do know how to pick these subjects, don't you? This one's it's a bit of an interesting one. There's a lot to unpack. Yes, I have a little one as well. Well, I've got two little ones, but so to my mind, I'm thinking we could approach it from the perspective of, say, culturation and enculturation. Like how are the children going through the process of adapting to a new cultural perspective? Because there is a cultural perspective, right? What are the norms that they're coming into? Right? What are the values, right? Okay. Yes, we have our values as Africans. We have our values that we bring from back home and things like that. How do it then becomes for me a task of how do we retain our native cultural heritage, right? And identity and traditions, if you like, right? Good traditions, of course, that goes without saying. I say this with the benefit of about having grown up in England and all of that nonsense, right? So, but there was this idea of also nurturing their unique characteristics. When I was growing up in Nigeria, I mean, maybe my mother a little bit would have, focused on nurturing my unique characteristics, but it wasn't something that was like kind of, and when I was having all kinds of job in command, nobody sent me, but now, I'm raising a child and I'm thinking, okay, I'm thinking about what is their unique, characteristic. What is unique about them?
Is there anything that worries you in the UK with your child growing up?
I mean, listen, the previous contributor alluded to this, man, listen, I've told kids off on the bus, for talking back at their mom. Like I go all Nigerian uncle on them and I'm like, yo, this is your mother. Like, have you lost your mind? So yeah, there are things like that that you worry about. The things that, because you remember when you send your kid out to school, if you think about the dynamic, the first time you take your child to a school, for instance, the child is apprehensive, might even cry, right? And then you keep taking them back there, right? Regularly, listen to your teacher, So they then obviously develop a trust for the space you keep taking them to. That means then that they are open to whatever they're going to get from there. And then they come back home, and then you have to now start to juxtapose, who we are in the house versus what it is that they see is as appropriate out there. Do you see what I mean? And it can become, a bit of a tricky one. The society has. Listen, there are loads of pros. We can't say there are no pros. There's the thing of having an expanded worldview. But even then, sometimes I argue that it's a bit of a moot point because everyone's got the internet now. So the idea of having an expanded worldview, yes, there are kids in Nigeria, in Africa, that also have an expanded worldview. If we start to think about population density, maybe we don't have a critical mass out there, but it's there. It's still accessible to a degree, right? What about language? Our kids, are we maintaining the language? Then these days I'm even relying on applications, man, to try to teach my son Yoruba, man. Right? Whereas if we were back home, it will be there with grandma, it will be there'll be uncle to, there'll be people that will be talking to me like, with you will hear it.
Yeah, that's spot on.
So that becomes a challenge as well. And there is this issue of even, the child even thinking that the language is strange or weird because of peer pressures in school. How do you manage that when, Baba, you're trying to pay bills and mortgage, and we all know when you live out here in the UK, if you step out of your door and take a breath, you're paying for it. Right? So that also can have an impact on the children, and them trying to understand it. But again, there's so much to unpack, bro. I want to hear what Amaka has put together.
Yes, I have something to say, right? So I've listened to everybody. I've listened to what a few persons have to say. I don't have kids of that age that could go out, right? I still have toddlers and infants, but I have met parents that I see their kids are well behaved. And for me as a person, I would always approach anybody. I think I like what you do, and I want to learn something from you. I'll always ask questions. And I ask them when I came to the UK, people always tell me, it's not easy. Your child will be this way, your child will be that way. Well, I never believe my own will be that way. I believe my own will be the way I want it to be. So I'm like, how did you do it? And then one thing I've realized from the few persons I've spoken to is the fact that they are invested in the life of their children. If A is invested in the life of her child and B is not, there's no way that you can have two of them behave the same way. Now, what I've noticed with immigrants compared to the Brits, fine, they had it going for them well right from time, unlike we Nigerians, or let me say Africans, right? But then you come to a country that you know that it doesn't really work well for you with the way the system is. You have to work. If not, you can't pay the bills. And then you do that, you don't have time for your kids. How do you think your child will turn out to be the way you want them to be? Right? I have 3 kids. I'm all working. Not like I don't want to work. I know where I was working in Nigeria before I came here, but I had to lower my standard because I know I do not want my kids to end up like the ones I see. Some things I do, some Nigerian kids, some that even came here, when I speak to them, they don't behave well. But we all say, the culture back home in Nigeria. No, it's not back home. It is you. Mommy and daddy, are you doing your own assignment? If you're not doing it, whatever your fear is will actually come to pass.
In terms of discipline, don't you think parents are limited by law that you shouldn't discipline your children in certain ways that we do in Nigeria?
Yes, I agree. Like today, I was talking to my daughter. I was calling her. She wasn't answering me. My friend called her. She wasn't answering. Just do this. She wasn't. And I said, wait, is this the way you people want us to do this? You're calling her. She's not answering. If they say you should, don't do this, and then if you do it, the law goes against you, right? Then I was asking, how did you then do it? Just a few days ago, a girl shared on her WhatsApp story, she was doing something about parenting, and then I could pick out some words, like how you communicate with your kids. They also help. But I think as a person, with a little research I have done, I've made, or I've heard people talk about is, if you give your children time and you show them that mommy is there for you, I don't think they will turn out to be otherwise. I'm always of this belief that whatever a child will be, will be. And I also believe that my kids will not be different from me. Funny enough, I had the same discussion with my husband today that my kids cannot do otherwise. Because he said something and he just hopes, he used a language about kids oversleeping during the day. I said, okay, mom is a crafter. I'm always busy. I always have something to do, just get that side income. I'm like, they see me do that. I don't expect they'll do something different, right? Because I always want them to be there for me. I show them, I love them. I play with them. If they go for their school party, if I'm not there, my husband is there. A family member is always there. And I also don't really want my kids to mix up. It's just a me thing, go out there. Even with the Africans you guys feel like you feel comfortable with, it's okay. But some of them too, they're not doing it right. But because you feel like it's your fellow black and then you take your child there, you don't think you're also mixing them up with certain things that you don't want to come into your home. So I just think at the end of the day, it's mommy and daddy's duty to bring up your child the way you want them to be. Yeah, it's not just the society. And I'm not of that mindset that, oh no, these people are looking at me or they'll think this way. No, I don't think that way. If you're doing things right, why will you think that someone is thinking that way of you? Do you understand what I mean? Where I stay, like on my street, I think I'm the only black, but I don't have that feeling. I've never even had a reason to have that kind of feeling that this is what they do. So I just think at the end of the day, it just lies on you to do assignments, and then your kids will be fine. I see many Nigerians, their children are wonderful, well-behaved. They've been here like so many years, well-behaved, like brilliant, intelligent. Okay, I craft, yes. I have been opportune to train in an NGO, like kids, like how to craft, black kids, just have 1 or 2 white kids, like among them. And then they behave very well. And I asked the owner who runs the place, like, how do they manage? She said, these are the things they do. So they bring them together, teach them some skills, tell them about, all these social vices and why they shouldn't do it, just they take them to church, they organize events for them, and that is how they've been able to raise wonderful, amazing, trust me, they are superb. If they can, my question is, why do you think you can't? Why do you think your child shouldn't be that way? Your child can. It's just you.
Yeah,
it's just you.
Parents,
that's the answer. It's just you, really.
I think if parents are there for their children, I think that's what you mean by investing. If you can actually just be there for your children.
Can I tell you something? Some parents are not there. I tell you the truth. Because we have evidence and we already see the kids. I wouldn't want to be disclosing certain information because it's not right. But like we see, mostly Nigerians, I'm sorry to say, like, why really? Because you have a target to save up to 30,000 pounds in a year, and then you don't. How do you want it to work? Do you understand? How do you want it to work? It's not possible. So something has to give in for another one to, except some children are just naturally blessed. Like, they will not just disappoint you. Hey, if you're in that circle, then lucky you. But if not, you just have to do your assignment.
A lot of children are well behaved. But when you go on the internet, you get to see the narrative there is terrible. That most kids in Western worlds actually grow up to be not well trained children. And that's a big worry. So if you see the environment as it is just now, it's completely restricted. Where you as a parent, you've done enough, and you probably think they should actually, help the child, mold the child properly. But the child has his or her own, yeses and nos. Like, a child can just tell you, no, I really don't want to do this. You're trying as a parent to say, okay, this is how I want you to actually live in my house, or this is what I want you to do. The child says, no, this is not what I want to do. But the
question, sorry, Mr. Fred, is what do you define as the parent has done enough?
Like, because most times you see parents will say, okay, I want you to sit in a certain way. I want you, when you come back from school, this is how I've taught you to read. This is what I've taught you to do. When you finish eating, take the plates into the kitchen, all of that. And the child says, okay, I don't want to do that. And you have practically done this severally with the child. But the child still feels, I have my say. I can do whatever I want to do. Because in school, we play, we mess up, and the teachers still don't really, scream at us. They don't spank us. That's the norm here. So even as a parent here in your house, you probably just want to raise your voice a little. Your child looks at you as if something is wrong. Dad, you just screamed at me. And for us back home, that's like a normal, like when your parents actually scream at you, you just come back to reality. So here in the UK, that's a no-no. So how do you as a parent just continually try to invest, like you say, in your kids when some of these parents are really trying, and when they go out and they probably have 1 or 2 friends who I wouldn't want to use a certain narrative, but people from this environment, and they begin to live like them, they begin to talk like them, they begin to, do their social gatherings and meetings like them, and they come back home, they probably come back different. So you try as much as most parents would do to invest and try to teach them. And that's why most parents also put their kids in activities like swimming, just to channel that energy into something positive. But sometimes it's always a big fight. If you compare this to having these kids grow up in Nigeria or in Africa, it's a complete different ballgame. So why do we have this narrative that most kids in Western world tend to behave differently, completely differently, even when you have parents that are really trying? Dr.
I may say actually, it's not 100% true, because even kids back home in Nigeria still behave contrary to what their parents. You see children grown from good family background, like pastors' children. You see them misbehave immediately they leave to maybe secondary school or the university. But the truth is, like she has already said, it depends on the way you bring up your children. But let me give you an instance. I noticed that my daughter started behaving funny in their class. She's very good in their class. So the teacher says she's one of the best. I knew why the teacher said it's one of the best, because if the teacher says sit down, she'll sit down, because that's how I brought her out. Now, but in the class, the children are very stubborn. If the teacher says sit down, they will not sit down. So she started copying that, because that's the environment she finds herself, and she sees that as normal. And since others have been doing it, and it's normal, the teacher will just say sit down. If you refuse to sit down, there's nothing the teacher can do about it. She'll just let you be. And the child sees that as a norm. And then when she comes back home, and the parent, you as a parent, you are trying to force some stuff on how him or her, the child begin to see you as maybe you don't like them. So because of that, the child starts to rebel against you, because you see that this child has been doing it in school and nothing has happened. How come that my parents will now be forcing me to do those things which I used to do? I can do them in school and no one will force me to do them. So the child begins to revolt. And when you see all those things, you know that the environment has a better impact on the upbringing of children. So, but what you can do as parent is to try to have a conversation with the child. I think that is very important. When you keep talking to them in a good atmosphere, not in a hostile atmosphere. Now, when the child is trying to rebel, for me, I don't think you should ask at that time, because you may be angry and you do what you're not supposed to do. But if you can allow the child, you sit the child down and make him or her to understand that that is not the norm. You see that child will immediately start to behave well, and the child will be exceptionally different from others.
I've listened to what everyone has said. It's all about acculturation. Because coming from Africa as a migrant family to a Western world, it's really a cultural shock for both parents and the child. The child gets to meet amenities they've never seen before, group of people they've not seen before, the color, so they have this thing processing in their head. We as adults, we can easily acclimatize. So these are the environmental shock and cultural shock and values the children get to meet. When they get to school, they meet a different value altogether. So when you do not train your child, the society trains your child for you. So the values and the system, what you foresee that you want your child to be, starts from the home. So it's creating time for the child. We are busy people, we are migrants, we need to keep up with the pace of finance and all that, but we must make sacrifices for the children. What we are used to back in Africa, the carrot and stick approach, that extent cannot be laid down here, because that's our own understanding of form of discipline, because we want them to move in a certain way. Here, it's a different value system. In fact, the Child Rights Act is going to come down on you. Your responsibility as a parent is to ensure you guide the child. You have full guidance of the child. As long as you're 18 years down, your child. You don't deprive the child of feeding, clothing, education, communication, information. But you cannot compare it back to where we're coming from. It's where you say it's whatever information you want to be given out to a child. That's what, because we have holistic parenting of a child. Here is different. So these are the cultural differences, the value system. And we don't call it people being nosy. Safeguarding is the business of everybody. It's my responsibility to look out for your child, and it's your responsibility to look out for my child. It's called safeguarding. So it depends on what extent. So the cultural shock and the value system, they are quite different. But to create a balance, you start your homework from home. We are Africans, we have a value system. But in order for the child to be balanced, there must be boundaries. This is acceptable, that's not acceptable. You negotiate with the child. We are now in a climb where we have to negotiate. We speak to their own understanding, not what we want them to hear. You communicate effectively. Is it the language? Is it the tone? Do you understand what I'm saying? So they must go at par. So you're no longer lording yourself on the child. The child over here is seen as an entity that has a capacity to reason and make decisions. It's your responsibility to guide the child. So if you cannot have it, you can't give what you don't have. So that's where the clause comes in, that people are having issues with their children. Because you can't give what you don't have. You don't know how to handle it, because you've not taken the time to understand where you are. the new system you find yourself. Study and find out how to go about with your child. I usually encourage, sorry?
I wanted to chip in there quickly. So I was also thinking the level of information these children get at that early age. Don't we think it's something to be worried about? You have a 6-year-old who tells you in the house about things like adoption, things like wanting to be a boy when you're a girl, about some things that normally you don't get to hear kids at that age talk about. Do we also think that so much information that's been placed on these children at that early age is something of a big worry?
Remember what I said. The Child Right Act, your responsibility as a parent is to not to deprive your child of information, because the information you don't give to your child at home, the child receives information outside. So it depends on what extent you discuss with your child. You cannot shake it off. It's out there. It's out there. So you need to make the child understand. If the child is coming from a Christian home, you lay it down. Whoever wants to identify as whatever, that's up to them. Or what's in your home, what's acceptable. If you find out that, oh, that's the child has gotten to that level of having that mental health issue, you seek help. You seek advice spiritually, counseling. You take that child. That's what the system you're finding yourself in. You can't lord it over the child. Then when it comes to information, like I keep saying, if you're not there for the child and you give your child, for instance, a laptop or an iPad, that iPad is conditioning the mind of your child. You have given parenting to the object. And whatever the child garbage is in, is garbage is out. At the end of the day, it becomes the fault of the parent. That's when we come with that question that lots of migrant children outside the country, maybe in the Western world, are badly behaved because something else has taken the responsibility of the parents. So you cannot deprive the child of information. It's the level of your own understanding as an adult, what you are disseminating to the child to understand. The information is out there. So if you have a 6-year-old child, you don't want your child to see some certain things in the phone, you have a way of blocking such things. Yeah, you block them. Then secondly, when the child gets to school and meets badly behaved children and come back home to exhibit such character, you set boundaries for the child. You communicate. You sit the child down, speak to the child. No longer as a child, like I'm lording over you. You communicate with the child, observe the child, something is wrong somewhere. I'll give an instance for my son. When my son came in here, he was the youngest. He struggled a lot with them academically. He struggled with finding himself fit in socially. But he had older sisters. They spoke with him. They're facing the same issues. But we sat together as a family. We had to make him understand that this is who they are. A lot of them say contrary things. I say they tell lies a lot. And I started seeing my child picking up such things. To them, it's a prank. Oh, they throw a lot of banter. You say it's just the way it is. So they are home training, and you reiterate on it, and you stand by it. You see your child, when he goes out there, he comes back home, he acts the way the home is expecting him to act. So when you train the child the way he should go, when the child grows up, shall not depart. Unfortunately, these days they depart. But like I keep saying, it's the full responsibility of the parents to guide and guard the child to full maturity. Yeah.
I just had a quick rejoinder. I totally agree with everything that the contributors has said there. Because one thing that we do personally, I try and make an effort with is, promoting, cultural pride. It's like explaining to my son, saying, listen, do you know the story of Ogumosho? And then going in and finding out the stories and promoting that cultural pride so they know where they're coming from, and as everyone's kind of touched on, it's about proactive parenting, not reactive, proactive parenting, having that open communication, like regular check-ins. I've been an educator for a while, so I've developed a lot of skills around pastoral care, and sort of like mentoring and things like that. So I apply that to my kids too. One of the ways that I show my young son that I'm the top dog is I've introduced him early to martial arts. So he comes into the dojo and he sees me throwing some other people around. That creates a sense of, okay, maybe not mess with that. But at the same time, he's learning self-control. He's learning respect. Because when you go to the dojo, you have to comport yourself in a particular way. And teaching him things like hard work. Like just go to the dojo. Oh, I can see what you're doing, Dad. Just keep coming to the dojo. One day you learn how to do it. In terms of consequences, for instance, as kids do lines in my house. I will not disobey mom again. You will write it 100 times. That in a way, it's reinforcing the lesson. I will not yell at mom ever again. You will write it 100 times. I know you definitely don't want to sit down there when you have a Nintendo Switch that you want to go and play, sitting down there writing 100 times. I will not raise my voice at mom again. But you write it 100 times. I'll be helping you count it. Oh, we're breaking for lunch. Okay, come and eat. When you finish your lunch, I go back and continue finish your writing. Right. So yeah, proactive parenting, I think is key. And of course, culturally sensitive education is also important. They're definitely living in a total different world. And it's going to get even much more complex. And it's going to get much more. Because over time, because of all the information that's being pumped out there, people's decision, what's the word that I'm looking for? People's focus gets eroded, and these kids are growing up in the age of Chat GPT. Imagine 5 years from now, what technology they'll have. Yeah, it's about having positive role models, representation, showing them interesting things, about where they come from, who they are. These days you have to negotiate with your child. You have to explain to them. These kids out here are really, really smart. You have to explain to them this is why this happens. It keeps you on your toes as well. I think being a father has made me definitely a better person. Because I try and say, what can I do to make sure that they have the skills, to thrive in the world that they're growing up in. It's just my rejoinder to that.
If we say we have a lot of parents that are listening to this, and these parents would say, I've actually done most of these things that you guys are talking about. I've been very practical. I've been always there for my children. I try to take them for activities. I take them to church. I try my best to, put them at the forefront. What would you practically, I know you guys have said a lot, but what would you practically want to recommend to these parents who would say they've done so much, but their kids are now being influenced by the environment? Because sometimes the influence can be so strong, very, very strong. And these kids, just like Mrs. Regina said, the information they have is very, very vital. It's very handy. Some of them can actually do some things you wouldn't believe they can do because of the information they have. So some parents are really withdrawn. They're scared. They probably know what to do, but sometimes they feel that they wouldn't want to apply some of those, applications there because of a lot of things happening around here in the UK. What would you want to practically advise these parents that are listening to us talk today?
Fred, if I can just quickly chip in, one thing we need to understand is that parenting is not one man show.
And that's one thing again. In back home in Africa, parenting is like a community thing.
Exactly.
Here in the UK,
that's
it's
what
not
we
a community thing.
However, if we say it's a teamwork, if you find that most families in the UK, you find that parents living together, yet it's like a single parent raising a child. It's either the father figure is not there or the mother figure is not there, quote and unquote, very busy. So it's a teamwork. If they're not on the same table, it will have a massive effect on the child. Remember, the society we're finding ourselves now, we have loads of single parenting. Most of them are from single homes. Most of them are from broken homes. Most of them are from foster homes. So they have different value system they're bringing in. Do you understand what I mean? So these things are challenges that these children face. So another thing there is the culture. What culture are you bringing in your home? First and foremost, you need to identify where you're coming from. Enough of Western attitude on our children. We've given that they're in the Western culture, Western environment. What are their names? Do they speak and understand your language? When you speak to them, I keep telling a lot of people, language plays a lot of role in upbringing of a child. It gives them identity. No matter how long you stay in this country, you are not a British by skin. Whether you like it, back at home, it's called tribalism. Here, you call it maybe unconscious bias. I don't want to use the main word. But it is what it is. It is what it is. So parenting is no one-man show. It is the two of them coming together to raise the child or the children. It's not a one-man show. That is where you begin to have effects. You cannot ask your daughter to sit down and the mom called and say, okay, dad was just joking. He didn't mean to ask you to sit down. You don't have consistency. You don't have structure. You're already building a wrong foundation for the child. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you're not on the same path, you can't raise that child properly the way you want that child to grow in the particular value system you've already placed in their home. So that is a challenge already. Then if you're coming in as an African, what culture are you passing on to the child? That is another quotation. That is another clause. culture, but your food, your language, your dressing, they all follow to shape the child. So because you are already here in the Western system, you see what they have here. They have their own culture. You cannot kill their culture. You only come in here to adjust to their own culture and adapt to it, not adopt 100% of it. That works makes up a child. Then what are we putting in the child? We can't speak a language to a child. We can't go out to maybe an occasion and say something that is contrary to what everybody hears and the child gets the information. Look at the Asians. Look at the Asians. So that's just my point, my brother. It's a teamwork and your culture. What are you bringing in? That's what makes the value of a child.
Yeah, so anything I want to say is basically what Sister Regina has said, which of course is what I said earlier. I totally concur with it. And like she said earlier, you cannot give what you don't have. You can't just say if you've not shown so much love from the get-go, then all of a sudden your child is misbehaving. You think you can just talk down on your child and then you expect them to react. I don't think that's possible. So except you've been doing that from the foundation, then that wouldn't work eventually if you've not been doing that right. So you just need both parents, like you said, to get your child to be what they want to be. Like I said, I see other people, like their kids are well behaved, and some other people are like, no, once they are here, it's so hard. And I'm like, but if other people are doing this, then how did they do it? And this is the
percentage. I think it's the percentage they're talking about. The percentage of children that are doing very well because they have parents that
shouldn't that be higher? I think that should be higher. Well, from what I've seen, I've not seen like the research out there, but from the ones I've seen around me, the well-behaved ones, like the percentage is higher than the ones that are not well-behaved. And then the ones that are not well-behaved, we know why. You're not there. If you're chasing after something, you're not giving in for your own kids. How do you expect them? Like they said, it's not like in the back home where, if you're not there, Mama Nkechi is there to help you, okay? But there's no Mama Nkechi here to help you, so you just have to do it yourself.
Back home, because we have a lot of options.
Even the mates are
we either have the grandmom, or we have the mates, or we have our neighbors, or we have the community. It's like a collective thing there.
Yeah. But if not here, since it's different here, you just have to do it yourself. You just have to do it, because if you're looking for the people who are supposed to do it for you, they are putting in some information that you don't want to be there. So then you have to step up your game, basically. Because like you said, a 6-year-old already knows this, and it's not the information as a dad you want to hear. Yeah, so you have to be a better teacher to your child. Money will come, but I think we should just...
We're still talking about this money because I understand clearly. I think I had a friend tell me the same thing in England, where the parents go out at the same time in the morning. They had one lady staying in one of the rooms, so she was actually paying them to stay in the house. But they left the responsibility of taking care of these children to the lady staying in the house. So sometimes she just wakes up and sees nobody in the house. And she would probably just walk around and be like, where's the mom? Where's the dad? They've gone out. And while you guys were going out, you didn't even knock my door to tell me we've gone. No. So these kids most times don't even brush. They don't really eat. Maybe they don't take breakfast that well. Is this girl? Sometimes she would be like, how do you guys know I'm going to be around? Like, don't I have my own life? I'm staying in your house, but I can also go out. So we have a lot of stories where parents are just chasing this money. They really, really don't care that much. Mr. Vincent?
Yeah, I'll give an instance. When you look at the Asian parents from Asia, like India, Pakistan, and the rest, you see, their parents, mostly their mothers stay at home to take care of the children to a certain level. And with that, you see that the children from those families, the Asian children do better, even in school, compared to the African. It's a fact.
Very true. I totally concur with you. Because my
if you check the exams, the national exams here, the pass rate, you see that the Indians, the Pakistanis, and the rest, they do better. Then maybe the Black Africans, the Africans, they are maybe average. Now, if the parents will take time to take care of their children, definitely the children will do well. If you feel there are two things involved, either you choose your career or you choose money or you take care of your children. If you want your children to be good, then spend time with your children. I know it's difficult, you're trying to pay bills and all that, but when we Nigerians, we are so greedy with money. So if we can sacrifice some time with our children, I think they will do better. They are very good children. Nigerians are enterprising people. Their children, there's that gene in their children also to do well, but we just need to add a little effort to train them well, and they will do better. Thank you.
Especially in an environment like this. You
Yes.
just have to make those efforts.
I want to add to what Mr. Vincent has said, right?
Mm.
He nailed it. And then he said the Asians, the women are mostly home, of course, which I have also observed myself. But then back home, or rather the kind of persons we are, it just stems from selfishness in some homes. Like we see some people come here and next thing they are divorced, something has happened. Because if there is love on the side of both parents, you love each other, and the man has chosen to work for the woman to stay back, and he's not being selfish to her, I think she will stay back home. Because if you're working and you're not carrying your wife along, or you feel like you're working for your selfish interests, how do you think she's going to be happy? So she will also want to go and work to earn her own money, and at the end of the day, the kids suffer for it. So I think it starts with the husband and the wife doing things right, having that mutual understanding, saying, okay, at least you'll be home for the next 5 years. You still get this. I still get to do this for everybody. We still carry everybody along. Then if she's okay, she stays home, then the kids, then you're raising your kids the right way. Because if not, how do you want to do it? If both of them don't have the understanding, the home will definitely suffer. That one is, I don't think there's any debate about it. The home will suffer. So it starts from the man and the woman who have come together, first of all, to love yourself, have an understanding, know that we are crossing here. If we don't sacrifice, because you have to, that's
the kids are watching also. They are
watching, definitely. So if you don't sacrifice, then there's no way to work. So they have to work on themselves before it's just transferred to the home.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point you just raised there. Because if you don't have this coherent household, when you get to see families having the husband and the wife not in good terms, it affects everything in the family. So I think that's a very major point you just raised there.
Talking about performance in among the children, when we're talking about the Asians and the Africans, and then talking about the Asians, like one party working and the other not working. I need you to understand something. Maybe you're not aware that more of the Asians get public funds. It's more or less like almost like if the real indigenes are getting 50%, then we want to get people from the Asian community, like 30% are also accessing public funds. Then Jamaicans, 10%. Then maybe Nigerians, 5%. And then, so when people...
So is it that the extra cash is augmenting a lot so they can actually be at home and take care of their kids?
Yes. Now, when there is financial stability, you'll be able to say that someone should sit down somewhere and then the other person will decide to do little efforts because there's some cushioning. But there is nothing like that for our community. Let us remind ourselves like that. The majority of our community do not have access to public funds. Now, when I don't want to talk more of that, but that public, I want you to understand one of the reasons why these people are not working.
Can I use myself as an example?
That has to do with where the very, very fact I am dealing with. So, you see, if you're using yourself as an example, probably your husband is working in tech and is earning maybe like 3,000 as take home or 2,500. You cannot compare with a family whereby the husband is earning less than 2,000. Where will the bills be paid from? If you're an entrepreneur and you're a hardworking woman and you're not doing normal shift, maybe you want to do 20 hours. Maybe you still manage to get less than 1,000, probably 800.
Are we saying we don't owe responsibility to our children?
No, I'm not. You're not yet allowing me. I am breaking down some facts because we need to work on facts. Here in the United Kingdom, we deal with figures. Whether you like it or not, we need to be sincere with each other. Now, one of the major reasons why the Black community is all out working tooth and nail is because they need to make a living. And you know how the rule is here. If you cannot survive, go back. Nobody feels sorry for the other person. The government does not care. They did not invite you in the first place. You brought yourself here. So if you want to stay, you've got to prove it that you can stay. Now, it might not be the best approach. Do you understand? Many people don't understand how to manage the situation. That is why they have, these setbacks. Not everybody even has that good home, that good background in the first place. Many people struggle to get to where they are before they got married. And then, getting here again, it's another level of struggle. Do you understand? So it's not everybody that's financially stable to make certain decisions. It may not be the best way, but I mean, it is what it is. We need to be honest with ourselves. It is what it is. Now, for a family that wants to plan, one thing has to give way for the other. That is where the aspect of sacrifice comes into play. But if you want to sacrifice everything, your landlord will not hear sacrifice. Neither will utility bills. Do you understand? Energy bills will not hear sacrifice. We need to, apply wisdom with these things. Now, when it comes to the children, there are ways we need to address these things. That is why many parents need to unlearn certain things and relearn. We need to get it right. Because of the kind of place we come from, many people are not patient enough to learn certain things all over. They feel, I know how to do, we're all stuff. We don't like listening. We like feeling like we know everything. It's only the humble ones that acknowledge some things and accept it and find a solution to it. But how many of us are humble, actually? Let's be honest with ourselves. So now, these things, when it comes to the children, there are ways we can manage these children. Children need to be reminded many times. Many of them forget things. They get carried away. So it's for us as parents to sit them down, because many parents don't have time to even have a conversation with their children.
And it's everywhere. It's not just in the UK, everywhere.
Yes. Even from Nigeria, many parents don't have time. What do you want to say? Go and sit down. And that's it. But many parents need to relearn a lot of things here in order to help their children. We hear about so many things, like young children, they have become addicts. They don't want to work. I have depression. Depression, where? Where did you see the depression? You are less than 30. What is depressing you? Do you understand? You have never seen anything in life. 25 years old saying, what are you calling? Something and depression. I'm like, what? Where did you see it? Do you understand? But the world has changed. Even social media alone gives people anxiety and depression. Many times when someone is fighting, I say, oh, you're fighting because of social media. Go and die. They will continue. Do you understand? But how many people understand that these things are make-believe? People get so carried away unnecessarily. So do our children. So many times we need to sit these children down, but many parents don't do it. Now, when a child goes to school and they tell them, don't worry, speak to us, tell us anything, we are here to support you, we are here to, they will wind their brain, and the children will do what? They will fall for it. And then they will start to vomit what they're not supposed to vomit. When you are supposed to have a simple conversation, you throw away the opportunity. And before you know what's going on, you lose that child. We ourselves need to rebrand ourselves. We need to rebrand our strategies in parenting. If you need to look for a coach, look for a coach. Okay, if they carry a Scottish child now and they go and drop in Nasarawa, God help that child to survive. I mean, they should carry a Scottish child and say they should go and live with Alimanji that they want to practice on. That child. Now, imagine us now bringing our children and bringing them here. And we think it is just, okay, they will survive. No, they won't if we don't help them. But many parents feel like everything is fine. It's not fine. These children, my little one, she's literally like me, but I used to say she's the mean part of myself. She's not the kind part of me. I've seen it even before we got here. And guess what? Getting here, my daughter has become the king of boys, you. As in, the meanest boys in the school will be saying, she's a girl, and then she's like, yeah. I'm like, Bibo, yeah. Do you understand? It shows the kind of way she has put herself. Meanwhile, I'm like, this is not my own child. Madam, sit down here. Let us talk it out. Do you understand? I would tell her, this is not right. Those people that don't be doing yeah to them. I don't say she should not play with them, but please. Do you understand? Not because I don't want her to relate with them. But imagine when a bully, yeah, she has strong survival skills, but it must be monitored. If not, she will become Jagaban. The Jagaban that I will not be able to handle. And that is not what I am praying for. Are you getting it? So there are different faces. My first is more like the timid one. My last is like Baba, as in Makanaki. So imagine me dealing with one timid person and one Makanaki. I have to become counselor in between. Are you getting it? Now, left for some parents, they'll say, she has survival skills. Yes, she may have survival skills, but she needs to be guided. It's a lot of work. I had to quit on-site jobs and start work from home because I knew that the on-site job was taking me away from my children. I wasn't having time for my children. For goodness sake, what kind of parent am I going to be eventually? So I had to hunt for a work from a remote role. I hunted for it. I was determined. So, and now I work from home. I was actually earning more when I was working from city center, but I'm more fulfilled working from home and keeping an eye on them. Do you understand?
Yeah, that's part of the sacrifice.
So, yes, that's part of the sacrifice. So many parents just need to sit down, think, plan, calculate, and probably coordinate themselves, because many homes are not coordinated. And that's one of the problems we're having. So many homes are not coordinated. Hey, say, why you want to, did I come to UK to Cambridge? Who said you came to UK to Cambridge? I mean, when the family is richer, it's good for everybody. But
nobody's saying people should not be working hard in the UK. Or working hard to the detriment of your children is what we're talking about today. No matter what it is, parents in the UK should learn how to put their kids first. We know that we have bills. I also work from home. I knew why I took working from home. I used to work in the city center. I had to stop working in the city center to work in the house where I can go pick my child from school and bring my child home. I can also be in the house and monitor my child. Not just saying, okay, I'm working somewhere, my wife is working, and the child is just there. People need to sacrifice here in the UK. And that is just the message we want to pass out.
Might seem like a bit of common sense, but I would say embrace the duality of it. Embrace, the duality of the experience that coming from wherever in Africa you're coming from, into a Western environment. Embrace it. I've been building the habit of reading, I just reading a book, text, not even a lot of pictures, just text, because it builds a certain sense of, okay, my son has to be centered and he has to, and we read together. And it's what they see that they mimic, it's what they see that they mimic. So that's also very, very important. I think a focus on family, of course, mental health. Mental health is very, very important. A lot of parents out here are struggling with mental health issues, bro. Trust me, like, come on, especially the first experience of winter, when you wake up and it's dark and it's like 4 p.m. and it's dark and your body's telling you it's time to go to bed and you're looking at the time, it's like, no, it's not quite time to go to bed. Are parents taking their vitamin D supplements? Like, are they looking after themselves so that they can actually look after their children properly and create an environment where their children are thriving, So, yeah.
Sometimes you get to hear stories of African parents taking their children back to Nigeria because they feel these kids are beginning to learn some traits that probably does not align to what
that can be helpful. That can be helpful as well. That can be helpful, but not everybody can afford it as well, though. Like, we have to think about it also. Like, there's economics behind it. It's easy. There are some people I know, families, every year they take those kids home. Because obviously grandma cannot travel safely or whatever. They take those kids home. Let them go and learn. Let them, let them go and drink the water from in Onitsha, or they drink the water in Ubumosho. Like, let them eat boli, let them go and, walk through the markets and smell the smells and, so like, see the Owambe, see the traffic, see everything,
Parenting is not one size fits all. So it's different based on families and environment. However, I will advise young or upcoming parents, if you want to sleep on the night of your life, you start in the daytime. Because I really see no reason why a toddler or a child as young as 6 years old should be left with gadgets, unmanned. I didn't give my kids, my first daughter had her first phone at the age of 13, 14. Yeah. So you engage them. I just encourage people to, rather than giving your children gadgets just to keep them there, keep them busy. When you begin to talk to them, I keep telling my children, I don't give you these things because I want, when I call you once, you answer. I don't want a situation whereby, oh, mommy, the phone was on, I had my earpiece. I want your 100% attention. there's time for everything. So I encourage young parents, if they can try as much as they can to keep their kids off gadgets as early as possible. Engage them with books, writing materials, because I did that a lot for my kids. Give them books, give them writing materials, keep it on with them. If you look into the world now, loads of people who have gotten to that peak, watch the upbringing of their children. But I'll give you an example of Cristiano Ronaldo. I read something about him. His son was not even on social media for a very long time. His son never had a phone. Then what am I doing with my child at 6 years having a phone and having a tablet and all that and 24 hours on it? When I talk to my child, can't hear. So it's an advice. If they can try as much as they can to reduce their screen time for their children, place them on educational materials to keep them going, keep them busy, and make sacrifices. I paused my life for like 5-7 years in marriage for my family. So the sacrifices. So what is obtainable here is also obtainable in Africa. I worked in a private university back in Nigeria. I know what I saw with a faith-based university. Even ministers, men of God, struggled with their children. So it's a two-way thing. So it's not really an excuse because we're in the Western world. It's all about sacrifices and parenting. So that's just my advice to parents who are struggling.